Hi everyone, I'm Amy. I recently took the Hesi A2 exam and I received a 96. I wanted to make a video to share with you my study material, my study schedule, what worked, what didn't work for me, and to give you some advice and some tips to help you get a high score on your Hesi. So first and foremost, most importantly, I think it's very important that everyone takes Anatomy 1 and 2 before taking the Hesi exam, specifically anatomy and physiology part 2, because the majority of the questions that was for the anatomy portion was from anatomy 2. Now on to the material that I use the Evolve Elsevier books, edition 5 and 4. They're really the same thing. I thought they were different, but they're really not. What I got from these books was a nice touch up review for anatomy and physiology, as well as the math. Retouching on math was very, very big on me. I love math, but I haven't done math in years. So to reteach myself was really good. The reading and comprehension within these books, I think it was great, but the detail that I needed, like finding the main ideas, synonyms, and antonyms, I believe that nursehub.com was the biggest help. I'll get to that in a minute. But the next material that I used was the Myometrics Hesi A2. This is actually really good for reading as well. There's many different readings and practice tests that you can use that helped me deeply. Although with reading and reading comprehension, it's not the same material, but it gives you a good chance to kind of like catch up on getting down to the nitty gritty when you're actually reading a passage. The math in this book is actually very good as well, so I utilized this. And the anatomy and physiology piece was very good. It wasn't in depth, but I don't think any of the books that I studied were in depth. But I think the combination of all three books gave me a good foundation. Plus, there's a lot of practice tests within all of these books. You can keep going and on until you are perfect. Now, online usage, I use nursehub.com. Nursehub.com is by far the best tool I think I've ever used, and the great investment. I believe I paid about $20 a month, and I had it for about 4 months. I actually started studying for the Hesi back in January, and I just recently took my test at the beginning of May. So I think that's a good enough time to kind of study for. The nursehub.com, you have different sections. They have a section for the TEAS exam, and they have a section for the Hesi exam. And they have biology, grammar, anatomy and physiology, chemistry, physics, math, reading comprehension. And all those are amazing, but again, because my exam was only on the math, reading, and anatomy and physiology, I really only focused on those. I do have to tell you that the reading comprehension in nursing and the nurse hub is very, very long, and the passages are kind of overwhelming. And compared to the Hesi, it's completely different. Example, one of the passages that I had on the Hesi exam, I think, was about 5 lines long. And on Nurse Hub, the one of the readings were about maybe 5 paragraphs long. So it's a difference. But I think it helped me, again, because it helped me get comfortable in finding the main idea and finding the meaning of words and finding the author's tone. I think it really helped me out. They also come with videos per lesson, so that's extremely helpful. The math, I think, from nursehub.com was spot on, the best. Everything that was on nursehub.com was on my test. Not word for word, but like the sequence of it. So, for example, to break down what's in the test now, for math, there was lots of ratio and proportion, fractions, decimals, addition, subtraction, multiplication, a few word problems, and conversions. Conversions mostly ounces, pints, pounds, kilograms. So it's very important to remember the mnemonic King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk and the big G. Um, Reading comprehension was main idea, finding synonyms or antonyms, finding the meaning of a word, looking for the author's tone. Anatomy and physiology, like I said earlier, it was majority of from AP2. Not so much the physiology piece, a lot more of the anatomy, I felt at least. Critical thinking, there really isn't many study guides for critical thinking, but Quizlet, there's a lot of stuff you can use. I think I studied maybe 20 different Quizlets through the time that I was studying overall between the books, Nurse Hub, Quizlet, and Quizlet. I had a lot of repeat questions, word for word, so that was very helpful. But the critical thinking, it's honestly more kind of like common sense, and it puts you like in the moment of a nurse, and like, what would you do if this happened? And you kind of gotta think with your toes. um the critical thinking is not included in the cumulative score. The cumulative score is only math, reading, anatomy, and physiology, so that's good. But again, like I said earlier, it is considered when they are picking you for the program. My study schedule, I started studying 4 months ago. So started studying in January, probably even before that, touching here and there, at least on the math. But my study schedule was one day I would focus on reading. The next day I would focus on math. The next day I would focus on critical thinking. The next day I would focus on anatomy and physiology, and the rotation would go. And as the time got closer, instead of spending an hour or two like I usually would, it would be 3 hours a day or 4 hours a day on a subject, and keep going and going and going. The day before the exam, I did not study at all. I felt that it was best for me to take a break, because I didn't want to overdo it or overstudy. But to be honest, by the time I got to 2 days before the exam, I kind of ran out of things to study because I went through so much. And I think that if you get to that point where you took every single practice exam that the internet has to offer, free of course, you used the nursehub.com and took the practice exams on there, you use the books, you use YouTube videos, because they also have YouTube practice videos, and you feel like, okay, I've done everything and I don't know what else to do to kind of study, I think then you're ready. You're ready to take the exam. That's really all I have for you. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. But thanks so much for listening. Bye.